Hey guys, as we move through spring towards summer, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about training in the heat. Inevitably, we'll have some warmer weather coming our way, and as such, we need to adjust our training and our execution of training sessions to allow for the effect of the heat on our bodies. So, if we're training in 20 degrees versus 30 degrees, any given effort is going to be harder on our bodies and have a greater physiological toll in the 30 degrees compared to 20 degrees. So we need to adjust the execution of our training sessions to allow for this or for the effect of the heat on our bodies. So it's a really good opportunity to lean into the feel is real concept and adjust according to RPE and using our internal gears as opposed to chasing specific numbers in terms of power and heart rate. The other thing we need to be mindful of is our hydration status. So that goes for pre, during and post training. So we've got to be diligent around managing our hydration and bearing in mind that we're not camels and we can't hold infinite amounts of water and electrolytes, but we can certainly put in some simple practices and habits to help ensure that we can get not only maximal adaptations from the sessions we're doing, regardless of the conditions outside and the weather patterns, but also in terms of looking after our overall health and well-being. Now, some of you may have already done this, but other things that we do, especially if someone is leading into a race in hotter or more humid environment, is we go through a sweat test protocol to determine the specific hydration considerations for each individual. And that is often accompanied by a heat protocol. So whether that's training in warmer conditions, making use of indoor training and controlling the environment in which we're doing sessions, or even using the sauna to help the body adapt to a warmer environment before we head over there and race. So they're all things that we can do as well. But ultimately, what the main message is here is to consider how you train and how you execute your sessions. You can still train in warm conditions and when it's hot and sunny. Even no doubt there'll be a point this summer where there's a heat wave where we're looking at several days of up and around 40 degrees Celsius. It doesn't mean that you don't train and you can't train, but it might take some adjustment in terms of using the scaling or managing your hydration pre, during and post, or simply just adjusting the way you approach a session, even if it is a key session. This often involves checking your ego, leaving that at the door, and just managing it based on what you're greeted with as you're about to begin a session and how you're feeling. But it's basically being smart and pragmatic, thinking through what you're doing, not just mindlessly following a training session. And on the flip side, not just not bothering with something simply because it's too hot outside. There's sort of no such thing. You can certainly get something out of it. You've just got to be smart and adjust on the fly at times. But the key thing to remember is you still want to make sure you're aligning your execution of a session with the session goals and executing with the appropriate intent. So an example might be you've just got a simple staple run. So if you can't do that in cooler parts of the day or potentially indoors for some of you with access to a gym, then thinking about potentially taking some fluid or doing a looped course so you have access to fluid, and even including some walk breaks to ensure that the physiological strain on the body is reduced and, as I've mentioned, is in line with the intention of the session. Some of your key sessions or even race simulation sessions where you're going to hot environment to race, it doesn't mean you just go out and follow the session as planned because you've got to get it done because it's a key session. You may need to scale. As I previously mentioned, maybe you start a little bit earlier or a little bit later to avoid the hottest part of the day. And if none of those things can be done, then potentially you're looking at just really leaning into the feel is real concept and not just mindlessly chasing a heart rate or power number. you're actually thinking about how it would feel, and it's a great opportunity to put yourself into that situation or that environment where you will be racing, and actually think about how would you execute if it was this warm come race day. So a few things to remember, a few things to remind yourself of, a few things to consider moving forward as the weather warms up, and how you're going to manage your training in and around those conditions. Can be done, just takes a little bit of thinking. Train smart, look after yourselves. Speak soon. Cheers.